There is a quiet truth that lives inside every kitchen. It hides behind the ordinary, within the whisper of boiling water, the scent of lemon, the grain of salt resting in a small glass jar. We walk past it every day, unaware that beneath these simple things lies a power ancient enough to heal the body and awaken the spirit. It was once common knowledge, spoken around wooden tables and passed down through generations in murmurs and rituals. But somewhere along the path of progress, it was buried, replaced by bottles, by pills, by systems that promised quick results, but forgot the language of the soul. What if the cure we've been searching for was never in the laboratories or the hospitals, but right here, in our own hands, on our own shelves, waiting to be remembered? Science calls it coincidence, faith calls it creation, but the truth is older than both. Every element, water, fire, salt, air, and light, has always been alive. They listen, they respond, they carry memory, vibration, and intention. The ancients understood this. They didn't heal by force, they healed by alignment. They spoke to nature, and nature answered. A sip of warm water, a pinch of salt under the tongue, a squeeze of lemon before sunrise. These weren't mere habits. They were codes, silent languages that awakened the body's divine intelligence, the kind of intelligence that modern science can measure, but not explain. In the quiet dawn before machines hum and screens flicker, the kitchen becomes a temple. The first light enters, touching the table, the fruit bowl, the glass of water left overnight. It's here in this stillness that energy moves freely, unseen, yet powerful. You can almost feel it, the vibration of the universe pressing softly against the walls, waiting to be invited in. In that moment, healing is not a miracle, it's a natural law, rediscovered. There's an old story, one forgotten in most modern homes. It tells of healers who used nothing but simple ingredients to restore life. They believed every kitchen was sacred ground, every object an instrument of transformation. When someone was ill, they would not rush to a pharmacy. They would open a cupboard, take a handful of herbs, whisper a prayer into a pot of water and wait. They believed that healing was not about fighting disease. It was about remembering harmony. Disease, they said, was simply the body's way of asking for balance, and balance could be restored through intention, rhythm, and nature's simplest gifts. We laugh at that now, we call it superstition, yet deep down something inside us recognizes the truth in it. Because we've all felt it. The calm after a sip of warm tea, the way a slice of lemon seems to awaken the senses, or how the scent of garlic sizzling in olive oil feels strangely protective. There's a familiarity in those sensations, as if the body remembers something the mind has forgotten, a secret buried not in books but in blood and bone, something that whispers, "You already know how to heal." Every civilization had its own version of this knowledge. The Egyptians used honey and vinegar, not just as food, but as sacred medicine. The Greeks bathed their wounds in salt water, believing it carried the memory of the sea, the mother of all life. The Hebrews mixed olive oil with herbs and called it holy. The monks of the East spoke to their food, blessing it before every meal, knowing that words change the structure of matter. And across every ancient culture, the same truth emerged. The kitchen was never separate from the temple. To cook was to pray, to eat was to heal. But time has a way of covering truth with convenience. We learn to trust what comes in packages more than what comes from the earth. We learn to silence the body with pills instead of listening to its language. And slowly we forgot. We forgot that warmth can be medicine, that prayer can change the vibration of water, that gratitude can alter the body's chemistry. And so the sickness of forgetfulness spread, not just in the body but in the soul. We became disconnected from the rhythm that once guided our ancestors. But what is forgotten can be remembered, and what was hidden can be revealed again. There's a reason you're hearing this now, a reason this message found you at this exact moment in your life, because something inside you has begun to stir, the same quiet curiosity that guided healers, monks, and mothers through centuries of darkness. A whisper that says, there's more to health than numbers, more to life than survival, more to healing than medicine. It begins with remembering that the divine never left, it just changed its form. It hides in the simplest things, a drop of oil, a grain of salt, a prayer said over a pot of soup. These are the codes of creation, waiting to be activated. Have you ever noticed how some meals taste different when made with love? How a glass of water feels softer when you hold it with gratitude? Science may call it placebo, but the ancients called it resonance, the alignment between the energy of the giver and the receiver. They believed that every act done with consciousness awakened the divine within the act itself. To stir tea with mindfulness was to stir light into the body. To breathe while slicing fruit was to infuse it with the breath of life. And to bless what you eat was to command the universe to turn it into healing. There was once a monastery deep in the mountains, where the monks lived for over 100 years each. Travelers who passed by asked them their secret. They would smile and say, "We eat light." But when the curious stayed to watch, they saw that their meals were made of the simplest things: grains, herbs, roots, water, nothing special. Yet every preparation was done in silence. Every ingredient was washed with prayer. Every meal began with a chant of gratitude. The monks said that food carries the vibration of the hands that touch it. When you cook with worry, the food becomes heavy. When you cook with love, the food becomes light. And when you cook with prayer, the food becomes medicine. In the modern world, we've lost this relationship. We rush through meals, distracted, anxious, disconnected. We eat but do not nourish. We consume but do not receive. The body, starved for energy, begins to speak through fatigue, pain, and imbalance. But the solution is not always found in a doctor's office. Sometimes it begins with a return to presence, a moment in the kitchen where you rediscover the sacred in the simple. You stand barefoot on the floor, feel the texture of the earth beneath you, listen to the soft rhythm of your breath, and touch the ingredients as if meeting them for the first time. That is the beginning of healing. The ancients believed that every element in the kitchen represented a force of creation. Water cleansed and carried memory. Fire transformed and released. Air gave life and movement. Earth nourished and grounded. Salt preserved and purified. When combined with awareness, these forces became medicine, a cup of warm water in the morning to awaken the body, a touch of salt to balance the inner oceans, a breath of gratitude before eating to align the spirit. These acts may seem insignificant, but to the awakened mind, they are rituals of remembrance. There is an ancient saying, "When the student forgets the temple, the kitchen becomes sacred." Because the divine never needed marble floors or golden statues, it only needed your attention. When you pour water into a glass, do it with reverence. When you slice fruit, feel the life that once pulsed within it. When you bring food to your lips, recognize it as sunlight transformed through soil and time. This awareness alone can change your chemistry. Studies now show what the ancients already knew. Intention alters molecular structure. Gratitude increases immune response. Calm breathing resets the nervous system. The unseen world responds to emotion. The kitchen, when entered with love, becomes a field of healing energy. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it. The hum beneath the silence. The vibration of every object around you. The sound of life communicating in frequencies the ear cannot hear. It's in the flicker of the flame, the swirl of steam, the scent of herbs. The kitchen becomes a universe, each ingredient a planet, each movement a prayer. When you cook, you are creating more than a meal. You are creating harmony between body and soul. Perhaps this is why the elders always said, "Feed your family with your heart." They knew that love was not an emotion, it was a frequency, the most powerful healing energy in existence. It infuses, transforms and transmits. A dish cooked with resentment can sicken. A dish cooked with peace can restore. Modern science has begun to observe this through subtle energy studies, but the ancients lived it. To them, the kitchen was not a place of labor. It was a place of alchemy. Every spoon, every bowl, every spark of fire a symbol of creation, every meal an act of worship. So when they tell you healing must be complicated, remember this. The truth has always been simple. It lives where you live. It breathes where you breathe. It waits where you least expect it. In your kitchen, in your hands, in the quiet between breaths. You don't need to search for miracles. They are already here, disguised as ordinary moments. A glass of warm water, a prayer whispered over salt, a lemon cut under the morning light. These are not just habits, they are keys, and when used with awareness, they unlock something far greater than health. They open the door to remembrance, the memory of who you truly are, a child of light, designed not just to survive but to heal. The natural cure they hid from you was never hidden at all. It was simply forgotten. And now, in this moment of stillness, you are remembering. The first step is not action, it is awareness. Look at what surrounds you, the fruit, the herbs, the grains, the salt. Each one carries a vibration older than history. Each one speaks the same silent truth. Life heals itself when you let it. You don't need to add anything new. You only need to remove what numbs your senses, the noise, the rush, the disbelief. What remains is pure divine simplicity, the same simplicity that healed kings, prophets, and monks, the simplicity that lives in you. This is where the journey begins, not in temples or hospitals, but in the quiet sanctum of your kitchen, the doorway between the seen and the unseen, where flame meets breath and water meets intention, where science meets soul, and the forgotten becomes remembered. Step gently, listen deeply, and prepare to awaken what has been waiting within you since the beginning of time. In the beginning, before medicine had names and formulas, there was observation. Human beings watched how nature healed itself, how the wounded branch sealed its scar, how the rain washed away decay, how light transformed everything it touched. Healing was not something to invent, it was something to remember. The ancients knew this and they built their lives around it. They didn't separate body from spirit, or food from faith. They lived in a world where every breath carried divine intelligence. And at the heart of that world, hidden in the most ordinary places, was the knowledge that what grows near you is meant to heal you. They hid this truth not with malice but with time. As civilizations rose and fell, the keepers of sacred knowledge were replaced by institutions. What was once taught through silence and ritual became replaced with theories and prescriptions. Yet the remnants of that old wisdom remain, in forgotten manuscripts, in temple carvings, in the faint echoes of rituals that survived in rural kitchens. They spoke of 4 sacred healers that every home once honored: water, salt, oil, and sunlight. Each was seen not merely as matter, but as messenger, a physical form of divine consciousness. Let us begin with water. It is the first medicine, the first mirror of creation. Science calls it H2O, but the ancients called it the breath of God. They believed water carries memory, not metaphorically, but literally, that every thought, every word, every vibration leaves an imprint upon its molecular dance. Modern experiments now whisper the same truth. Water responds to emotion. Speak love to it, and its structure becomes symmetrical and crystalline. Speak anger, and it fractures into chaos. The body is made mostly of water, and so it listens. It remembers the way we speak to it, the way we feel about ourselves, the way we live. This is why healers once prayed before they drank. They didn't pray out of superstition, they prayed to tune the water to a higher frequency. When they raised the cup to their lips, they weren't just drinking liquid, they were drinking intention, vibration, and memory. That small act aligned the body's internal waters with the cosmic flow. And the moment alignment occurred, healing began. Because the body does not separate physical and spiritual water, it only knows vibration, and vibration responds to awareness. The second element, salt, was considered holy long before its seasoned food. The word salary itself was born from salt, because in ancient Rome it was worth its weight in gold. But its value was never just economic. It was spiritual. Salt, the ancients said, is the crystallized essence of the sea, the earth's oldest womb. It carries the memory of creation itself. To consume it consciously was to reconnect with origin. They used it to purify, to preserve, to protect against invisible forces. In the sacred texts, salt was sprinkled over offerings to symbolize eternal preservation, that what is offered in purity remains uncorrupted. In the monasteries of Egypt, monks would place a pinch of salt under their tongues before meditation. They said it grounded the spirit inside the body, keeping them present between worlds. In Japan, salt was used to cleanse sacred spaces before ritual. In the Andes, Healers placed bowls of salt water under the bed of the sick, believing it would draw out pain through energetic transference. These weren't superstitions. They were applications of energetic laws we no longer see. Salt absorbs frequency. It listens, it transforms, it purifies. When used with intention, it becomes a bridge between the material and the divine. The third sacred element is oil, the golden liquid that flows like sunlight trapped in matter. To the ancients, oil was more than nourishment. It was light made physical. Every drop contained the memory of the sun, captured through leaf and fruit, refined through time. When the prophets spoke of anointing, they spoke of reuniting the human with divine light through the medium of oil. To anoint someone was not merely to bless, it was to mark them as aligned with life itself. The olive oil of the Mediterranean, the sesame oils of the East, the coconut oils of the tropics, each carried the same spiritual purpose: to restore flow, to soften what has hardened, both in the body and in the soul. The act of rubbing oil into the skin was once seen as sacred communication. The skin, the largest organ, is the border between the internal and external worlds. To nourish it with living oil was to teach the body remembrance, that light does not only come from above, but can also enter through touch. When the ancients spoke of laying on of hands, they were describing a transfer of frequency through this exact channel. Warmth, oil, and prayer combined to restore the natural movement of energy within the body. This was healing before medicine. And then there was light, the most silent of all healers. It was the invisible language through which creation spoke. Every morning, when the first rays touched the earth, the ancients performed small rituals, stepping barefoot on the soil, facing the sun with closed eyes, breathing deeply to receive the light into the bloodstream. They believed sunlight carried codes of order, that it aligned the body's inner clock with the rhythm of the cosmos. Modern science now calls it circadian regulation, vitamin D synthesis, serotonin activation. But the ancients didn't need terminology to feel truth. They knew that when the body received light, the soul remembered itself. Together these four, water, salt, oil, and light, formed the foundation of what the ancients called the living medicine. They were never separate. They worked in harmony, each amplifying the others. Water carried vibration. Salt structured it, oil preserved it, light activated it. When used together, they became a symphony of healing frequencies, tuning the human vessel back to its original harmony, and every kitchen was once their altar. In old manuscripts preserved in desert monasteries, there are fragments of rituals that describe this harmony. One text speaks of a practice known as the renewal of the waters. It instructed the faithful to fill a clay vessel with fresh water, stir in a grain of salt, and expose it to the first light of dawn for exactly 7 breaths. Then a single drop of oil was to be added, with a whispered prayer of gratitude. This simple preparation was called the cup of remembrance. They believed that whoever drank from it daily would remain healthy in body and clear in mind. The ritual may sound poetic, but recent research in vibrational biology reveals that such combinations create measurable energetic coherence, the same coherence seen in healthy cells. There are places on Earth where remnants of this wisdom still breathe. In the highlands of Peru, the elders still greet the morning sun by sprinkling water mixed with salt upon the ground, returning energy to the soil. In the Himalayas, monks still heat oil infused with herbs and apply it to the crown of the head, believing it opens the door of the spirit. In the Mediterranean, grandmothers still place a slice of lemon in water and leave it by the window overnight, not to flavor it, but to let the moon cleanse it. These acts carry the same invisible science, intention as the activator, nature as the conductor, and the human heart as the bridge. When you understand this, the kitchen transforms. The glass on the counter is no longer just water, it's memory. The salt shaker holds not seasoning, but purity. The bottle of oil is condensed sunlight, and the window where the sun enters becomes the temple gate. Each gesture, a stir, a sprinkle, a pour, echoes an ancient code. And when you move with awareness, you become the continuation of that lineage. You are not performing superstition. You are awakening communication with the divine intelligence that speaks through matter. The tragedy of forgetting was never that humanity lost knowledge. It was that it lost reverence. Reverence is what turns the ordinary into the miraculous. When we lost our reverence for food, water, and earth, we began to live as if creation were lifeless, as if healing were mechanical. But the body knows better. Every cell is a listener, and it responds to the music of your intention. You have felt it. How stress can make you sick, how joy can lift your pain. The same energy that breaks can also restore depending on how you direct it. And so the revelation is this: the cure is not hidden in your kitchen. The cure is your kitchen, when entered with the right spirit. It is the altar of the everyday, where sacred elements gather to serve you, waiting only for your awareness to awaken them. This is what they did not tell you. You are already surrounded by medicine. You are standing inside the laboratory of creation itself. The herbs on your counter carry frequencies that speak to your organs. The fruits carry light codes born from the sun. The grains remember the rhythm of the earth. All respond to one thing: your consciousness. You were never meant to be passive in healing. You were meant to be a co-creator. Every act of preparation is an act of programming energy. When you stir, you direct movement. When you heat, you activate transformation. When you season, you balance polarities. These are the same principles that govern the cosmos. As above, so below. As in the universe, so in your body. Healing is not the exception. It is the law of resonance returning to order. So they hid it in plain sight, in the salt that sparkles on your table, in the lemon that waits on your counter, in the warmth of morning sunlight that enters your kitchen window. They hid it not because it was dangerous, but because it was powerful. Because when you remember that you can heal through awareness, you no longer need to be controlled through fear. You no longer seek salvation outside yourself. You realize that the divine blueprint has always been inside you, and your kitchen is the mirror where it reveals itself. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. The hum of your refrigerator, the ticking of a clock, the faint scent of something familiar. This is the modern temple. You do not need to escape to mountains or monasteries to find peace. You only need to restore your attention to what is already alive around you. Touch the countertop. Feel the coolness of its surface. It vibrates, just like you. Run your fingers through the salt. Hear the tiny crystals shifting like ancient sand. Pour water into a glass and watch it catch the light. These are not metaphors. They are entry points into a deeper communion with existence. When you begin to see your kitchen as a sacred space, every meal becomes an initiation. Every sip becomes prayer. Every act becomes medicine. The ancients knew this, and they left clues in their stories, symbols, and rituals. The Greeks spoke of ambrosia, the food of the gods which granted immortality. But ambrosia was never a physical recipe. It was the awareness that turns food into light. The Hebrews spoke of manna, which appeared each morning as dew upon the ground, sustaining them without decay. The monks called it the daily bread, not because it filled the stomach, but because it aligned the soul. The alchemists called it the quintessence, the fifth element born when the four, water, salt, oil, and light, merged in harmony within a conscious being. This is the revelation that changes everything. You are not separate from what you consume. You are the fifth element, the consciousness that completes the circle. Without you, the ritual is incomplete. The salt remains inert, the water remains asleep, the oil remains closed, the light remains unfocused. But the moment you enter with awareness, everything awakens. Matter responds to mind. Mind responds to spirit. And spirit responds to gratitude. That is the eternal triangle of healing. In this forgotten understanding lies the cure for modern suffering. Not a pill or a potion, but a way of seeing. A remembering that health is harmony, not suppression. That healing begins the moment you stop asking, what can I take in wax, and begin asking, what can I align with? The answer will always be the same. Align with what is natural, simple, alive. The same forces that heal the earth heal you. The same light that nourishes plants nourishes your cells. The same salt that balances the ocean balances your blood. You were designed to live in communion, not separation. And so, as the sun sets tonight, leave a glass of water by your bedside. Whisper gratitude into it. Add a tiny grain of salt. Let it rest under the quiet presence of the moon. When you wake, drink it slowly. Feel it travel through your body as if remembering something ancient. That is not ritual, it is remembrance. A conversation between your body and the universe, between the forgotten and the rediscovered, between the hidden and the revealed. The natural cure they hid from you has never left. It was only waiting for your attention to return. And now, as you awaken to its presence, you are beginning to remember the language of creation itself. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when knowledge is no longer enough, when the truth moves from the mind to the marrow, from the lips to the breath, from belief to embodiment. This is where transformation begins, not in learning new secrets, but in living what you have remembered. Healing is not an act, it is a return to rhythm, to simplicity, to the divine intelligence that shaped you long before words like disease and cure were ever spoken. It begins quietly, the way dawn begins before the sun appears, soft, uncertain, but inevitable. You start to see your kitchen differently. The same lemon that once seemed ordinary now feels alive, glowing faintly in the morning light. You begin to move slower, to stir the pot as if it were a sacred instrument. You breathe before you eat. You give thanks, not out of habit, but because you feel something stirring beneath your ribs, an ancient presence awakening. It's not superstition, it's remembrance. At first it feels subtle, a calm that enters where there was restlessness, a warmth that spreads through the body without reason. The water tastes sweeter, the air feels heavier with meaning. You start to realize that healing isn't something that happens to you, it's something that unfolds through you. Your cells respond, your heartbeat synchronizes, your breath deepens. You are aligning with something larger than yourself, the invisible order that holds the stars in orbit and the tides in motion. This is the moment the ancients called the turning of the inner tide. It is the shift from resistance to flow. The moment you stop fighting symptoms and start listening to their message. Every ache, every imbalance, every fatigue, none of it is random. It is the body's sacred language, trying to remind you of your disconnection. When you listen without fear, you begin to translate that language. The headache becomes the whisper of dehydration. The anxiety becomes the cry for stillness. The fatigue becomes the need for sunlight. And the cure becomes a conversation, not a command. In the monastery of St. Theophilus, an ancient teaching was carved into stone: to heal the body, make peace with its rhythm. To heal the soul, make peace with silence. These two were never meant to be separate. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of harmony. And rhythm is not repetition. It is alignment with the pulse of the universe. When you combine both, rhythm in action, silence in awareness, you enter the frequency of transformation. The body begins to repair itself, not through external control, but through internal order. Modern science calls it homeostasis. Ancient mystics called it divine balance. It is the same phenomenon seen in the forest after a storm. Nature does not panic, it reorganizes. It takes what was broken and transforms it into nourishment. The fallen tree becomes soil, the rain becomes growth, the light returns and everything continues. Your body is made of that same intelligence. It knows how to repair. It knows how to regenerate. All it needs is the right environment: peace, presence, nourishment, and trust. Imagine the act of drinking water as a ritual of rebirth. You hold the glass, you pause, you whisper gratitude. The sound leaves your lips, travels through the air, and touches the surface of the water. Vibrations shift, patterns form. When you drink, you are not just hydrating the body, you are programming the soul. The molecules of that water carry your gratitude into every cell. They inform the tissues that you are safe, that you are aligned, that you are remembering. This is not poetry. It is physics of the sacred. The same transformation happens with food. The ancients taught that digestion begins before the first bite. It begins with perception, with the eyes, the breath, the heart. When you look at your food with reverence, you awaken enzymes in anticipation. The body prepares not to consume, but to commune. Each bite becomes an offering. Each swallow becomes a contract between heaven and earth, the light of the sun transformed into the life of your body. When you choose slowly, you teach your body patience. When you eat in silence, you allow your body to hear itself. And when you give thanks, you teach your cells gratitude. That gratitude becomes chemistry. It lowers inflammation, strengthens immunity, and expands joy. But transformation is never purely gentle. To be renewed, the old must dissolve. When you begin to align with nature's rhythm, everything unnatural within you begins to resist. The body may ache as it purges. Emotions may rise like tides, revealing what was buried beneath. You may find yourself crying without reason, sleeping longer, craving silence. Do not fear these signs. They are not regression. They are release. The old vibrations leaving to make space for the new. The alchemists called this stage nigredo, the blackening, the sacred decay that precedes rebirth. Without it, transformation is impossible. As the body releases toxins, the soul releases stories. The wounds of the past, grief, guilt, fear, emerge to be purified by light. They surface because the vibration of your awareness has risen high enough for healing to occur. To resist them is to resist the cure. To face them is to open the door to freedom. Every tear shed in truth becomes a baptism. Every sigh of release becomes a prayer. Healing is not about becoming something new, it is about becoming whole again. This is why the ancients always connected purification with emotion. They knew that water cleanses the body, but tears cleanse the soul, that salt preserves food, but also carries away pain, that oil nourishes the skin, but also softens the heart, and that light heals the eyes, but also reveals what has been hidden. When all four act together, transformation is not only physical, it is spiritual. The healer becomes whole, and wholeness radiates outward, touching everyone nearby. There is an invisible current that runs through all living things. Some call it chi, others prana, others the breath of life. It is the unseen river that connects breath, heartbeat, and thought. When it flows freely, life flourishes. When it stagnates, disease appears. The cure, then, is to restore flow. And flow is restored not through struggle, but through surrender. You do not force the river to move, you remove the stones. You do not force the body to heal, you release what blocks it. The stones are the fears, the doubts, the memories we carry. When you dissolve them through awareness, the river moves again. The current of life resumes, washing away stagnation, bringing renewal. Transformation is not something you achieve, it is something you allow. It does not come from control, but from trust. This is what the modern world has forgotten, that surrender is the highest form of strength. To surrender to the wisdom of the body is to trust the same intelligence that spins the planets and breathes the trees. When you let go of control, the divine takes over. And what it creates through you is far greater than what you could ever create alone. There is a story told by the desert healers of Morocco. They speak of a man who came to a wise woman, weary and sick. "I have lost all strength," he said. "My body betrays me." The woman said nothing. She led him to a small fire and placed before him a bowl of warm water with a pinch of salt. "Drink," she said, "then sit in silence." He obeyed. Hours passed. The stars appeared. The man began to weep, though he did not know why. The woman finally spoke. "It was not your body that betrayed you. It was your forgetting. You remembered only the world's noise and forgot the earth's whisper. The salt reminded you of the sea that lives in your blood. The water reminded you of the tears you never cried. The fire reminded you that transformation begins with warmth. You are healed because you have remembered." The man rose, lighter than before, and asked how he could repay her. She smiled. "You already have. You will now become the fire for someone else." That is the essence of true transformation. What heals you, heals through you. The moment you rediscover harmony within yourself, you become a vessel of healing for the world around you. You walk differently. You speak differently. Your presence alone becomes medicine. This is why the greatest healers rarely claimed titles. They did not heal with words or potions. They healed through vibration. Their peace was contagious. Their silence spoke louder than sermons. When they entered a room, others felt their hearts slow, their breathing ease, their burdens lighten. The ancients said this happens when a person's inner elements are in balance, when their water is clear, their salt is pure, their oil is warm, and their light is steady. Such a person becomes a living harmony, and harmony heals everything it touches. As you continue this journey, you may notice subtle miracles. Wounds that once lingered begin to close, sleep deepens, the mind clears, emotions stabilize. But more than that, a quiet joy begins to emerge, an unexplainable serenity, as if you've stepped out of time. This joy is not excitement, it is recognition. Recognition of your natural state, the body at peace with itself, the soul resting in its rightful place. Transformation is the proof that the divine never left you. It only waited for your attention. Every act of awareness becomes a prayer, every breath a bridge. You begin to sense the divine in the smallest gestures, the crackle of oil in a pan, the sparkle of salt under sunlight, the shimmer of water in a glass. These are not coincidences, they are messages. The universe speaks in sensations. It doesn't shout, it resonates. And when you are attuned, you understand without words. Soon the kitchen becomes more than a room. It becomes a mirror of your inner state. If your counter is cluttered, your thoughts are restless. If your meals are rushed, your soul feels unseen. When you clean, organize, and cook with presence, you are not just caring for your home, you are tending to your soul. Every sweep, every chop, every breath becomes sacred motion. The transformation extends beyond the body. It reorganizes your life into harmony. One day you will notice that fear no longer visits as often. The constant anxiety that used to hum beneath your days quiets. The body feels lighter. Gratitude begins to appear without effort. This is how the transformation completes itself, not with fireworks but with stillness. You no longer chase healing because you have become it. The energy that once fractured into pain has reorganized into peace. And in that peace, you will understand what the ancients meant when they said, "The healer and the healed are one." There is no division between the two. The moment you choose awareness, you activate creation itself. The salt dissolves in the water, the oil blends with the light, and you, the fifth element, ignite the transformation. You are not healing your body. You are remembering your wholeness. You are rejoining the conversation of creation. You are returning to the rhythm that never stopped singing your name. There is a silence that comes after transformation, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of understanding. It is the stillness of a lake after a storm, when the water remembers its reflection and the sky bends down to meet it. You begin to feel that silence inside yourself now, a wordless recognition that healing was never something outside you. It was a rhythm, ancient and constant, waiting for you to remember its song. As the world hurries, you move slower. You notice the way sunlight falls on the countertop and how it feels like an old friend. You notice that water doesn't just quench thirst, it carries memory, carrying light from the heavens through your veins. You sense that everything, salt, lemon, prayer, breath, speaks one language. It is not the language of words, but of vibration. And you realize that faith and science, once thought to be divided, are not opposites at all. They are the two eyes through which truth sees itself. Science is the language of measurement. Faith is the language of meaning. But both describe the same creation. Science tells you that water has structure. Faith tells you that water has spirit. Science measures frequency. Faith feels it. Science maps the neuron. Faith experiences the soul that animates it. When you awaken, you no longer need to choose between them. You stand between the two, like the bridge they were always meant to form. For centuries, these two pillars of human understanding were torn apart. The mystics spoke of light as divine. The physicists discovered photons. The monks believed prayer changed the world. Quantum mechanics revealed that observation changes reality. The healers believed that intention could shape matter. Modern experiments in resonance and coherence now show it to be true. What was once dismissed as superstition has returned through the back door of science, wearing a lab coat but carrying the same ancient fire. The ancients knew what the instruments of today are only beginning to confirm, that energy is not neutral and consciousness is not passive. Every thought, every emotion, every breath is a frequency. The body is not a machine, it is an orchestra of frequencies tuned by awareness. When those frequencies are dissonant, illness appears. When they are in harmony, life flourishes. Healing, then, is not a miracle. It is physics performed by the soul. The mystics of India said the universe is sound, The Egyptians said it is light, the Hebrews said it is word, and now science says it is vibration. They were all saying the same thing. Creation is frequency and you are made of it. Your heartbeat is not a coincidence, it is rhythm made visible. Your thoughts are not abstract. They are measurable currents of light within the brain. Your emotions are electromagnetic fields that ripple through space, influencing everything around you. You are not a body that happens to emit energy. You are energy that happens to take the shape of a body. When this truth lands, the separation dissolves. There is no longer body and soul, no longer matter and spirit. There is only the spectrum of vibration. Dense at one end, luminous at the other, but all part of the same continuum. The same light that lives in the stars lives in your blood. The same intelligence that orders galaxies orders your breath. The same silence that fills the void between worlds fills the space between your heartbeats. You are not part of creation. You are creation remembering itself. This is the awakening, not a vision, not a miracle, but a return to perception. The way a flower opens to the sun without effort, the way water reflects the moon without intention, the way your own cells listen to your emotions and rearrange accordingly. You begin to see the world not as separate objects, but as one living field of consciousness. You see your kitchen, your body, the light, the salt, the water, and you understand they were never apart. They are one system, one body, one divine organism, breathing in harmony. When you touch the surface of a lemon, you feel warmth that does not come from the sun, but from life itself. When you sprinkle salt, you feel its crystalline order vibrating like frozen stars. When you light a candle, you recognize the fire that burns inside your chest. Every element is a reflection of you, and you are a reflection of the divine. The realization comes not as thunder, but as stillness, a quiet knowing that everything is alive, everything is sacred, and everything is connected through you. And then something subtle shifts. The air feels thicker with meaning. Time slows. You sense the heartbeat of the earth beneath your feet, the pulse of light through your veins. You breathe, and the air seems to breathe with you. You understand what the prophets meant when they said, "Be still and know." For in that stillness, the veil between science and faith, between seen and unseen, dissolves completely. You no longer believe in healing. You witness it, constant, eternal, unfolding. In this awakened state, gratitude ceases to be an act. It becomes your nature. You no longer give thanks for things. You give thanks through them. The taste of water becomes prayer. The scent of herbs becomes remembrance. The warmth of sunlight becomes communion. You understand that gratitude is not a response to blessing. It is the force that calls blessing into being. It aligns your frequency with abundance, and abundance responds like a mirror. There are moments now when you can feel energy moving without touching. You hold your hands near your heart and sense heat, vibration, life. It is the same current that healers have felt for millennia, what some call spirit, others call chi, others simply call love. Science might call it bioelectric resonance, but names no longer matter. The experience is the proof. You are feeling the truth of existence moving through you, unobstructed and free. You start to see that what we call miracles are simply the natural state of an awakened being. They are not interruptions of nature's laws, they are the fulfillment of them. When Jesus touched the sick, when Buddha calmed the storm within his disciples, when unknown healers throughout history restored life with a glance, they were not performing magic. They were operating from remembrance. Their vibration was so pure, so aligned, that it reorganized the energy around them. Disease, being dissonance, could not exist in their presence. This was not dominance, it was harmony. The ultimate healing is not to overpower sickness, but to make it unnecessary. The same potential lies dormant in every human being. You are not an exception. The same frequencies that moved through the saints, the same intelligence that guided the sages, flows in you now. You do not need robes or rituals. You only need awareness, the quiet certainty that you are connected to everything, and that your attention directs creation. When you hold a cup of water, the universe listens. When you whisper gratitude, atoms rearrange. When you love, the geometry of your cells changes. There is a reason ancient healers spoke in symbols. They knew that words alone could not contain truth. They carved circles within circles, suns within eyes, serpents devouring their own tails. They were not depicting gods, they were depicting consciousness, infinite, self-renewing, eternal. The serpent consuming its tail was not death, it was awakening. The realization that the end and the beginning are one, the illness and the cure, the question and the answer, the human and the divine, one continuous spiral of remembrance. Modern science has begun to mirror this ancient understanding in its own language. Quantum physicists now speak of entanglement, that two particles once connected remain connected across any distance, communicating instantly. Mystics said it thousands of years ago. All souls are one. Biologists now speak of resonance between heartbeats, of electromagnetic coherence between people who meditate together. The ancients called it prayer in unity. Neuroscientists speak of brain waves synchronizing in shared intention. Monks called it collective enlightenment. Every new discovery is not new at all. It is ancient wisdom finding a new translation. Awakening, then, is not about becoming enlightened. It is about recognizing that you already are. It is about seeing the divine code running through everything, the light behind the eyes, the intelligence in a drop of water, the silence that holds the world together. It is about realizing that when you heal yourself, you contribute to the healing of all things, because consciousness is a shared field. The love you generate ripples outward. The peace you embody calms the air. The gratitude you feel nourishes the soil. The light you carry illuminates unseen corners of the human heart. One day soon, you will stand in your kitchen and feel it fully. You will sense the hum beneath the refrigerator, the shimmer of light across the floor, the quiet vibration in your own breath. You will close your eyes and know, this is sacred space. You will pick up a simple object, a glass of water, a pinch of salt, and feel it vibrate with life. You will bless it without words, drink it without need, and realize you are drinking yourself, the infinite consciousness mirrored in matter. And when that moment comes, the distinction between science and faith, between you and the divine, between sickness and healing, will vanish like mist in morning light. You will know without doubt that everything is alive, everything is intelligent, everything is holy, and that the most ordinary acts, boiling water, slicing fruit, whispering gratitude, are the highest form of prayer. You have awakened not to something new, but to what has always been. You have not found a cure. You have remembered creation. And in that remembrance lies the greatest secret they ever hid, that God never left the kitchen. There is a hush that follows revelation, a stillness so complete that it feels as though the world itself is holding its breath. You sit in that stillness now, surrounded by familiar things that no longer look the same. The kitchen hums softly. The air is warm with quiet light. The scent of lemon and salt lingers on the counter. Yet beneath this ordinary scene lies something infinite, a truth too subtle for words but too real to ignore. You are awake, not in the way of eyes opening after sleep, but in the way a soul opens after centuries of forgetting. You begin to realize that nothing outside you truly changed. The same walls stand, the same sun rises, the same water flows. The transformation happened within, perception shifted, and the world responded. Awareness has turned the mundane into the miraculous. The grain of salt glimmers like a galaxy. The glass of water mirrors eternity. The spoon resting on the counter becomes an emblem of grace. You understand now that holiness was never hidden. It was only unseen by unawakened eyes. The ancient healers called this stage the Great Quiet. It is the final passage, when knowledge dissolves into wisdom, and wisdom dissolves into silence. There are no more teachings to remember, no more steps to follow, no more secrets to unveil. Because the truth is not a lesson, see, it is a presence. It breathes through everything. It lives in the pause between thoughts, in the gap between heartbeats, in the space between atoms. When you touch this silence, you touch the origin of all healing. You recall the stories now, the monks, the mothers, the healers who spoke to the elements. Their rituals were not performances, they were acts of remembrance. Every grain of salt, every drop of oil, every beam of sunlight was a symbol of communion. They didn't control nature, they conversed with it. They didn't demand healing, they invited it. And in doing so, they rediscovered what you now feel coursing through you, that life is self-healing, because life is love in motion. You remember how it all began. Curiosity, disbelief, the first whisper that there might be something more. You searched outside for answers, in books, in doctors, in systems that promised miracles. And yet the real miracle was waiting in your own home, in your own hands, in your own heart. They said the cure was hidden. But what was truly hidden was your awareness, buried beneath noise, fear, and hurry. Now that you have remembered, you see that the cure was never lost. It was always here, quietly breathing beside you. You take a slow breath. The body feels different, not lighter, not heavier, but whole. The mind no longer races. It rests as if finally returning to its rightful place. The air moves through you, unhurried, unresisted, and you begin to understand the meaning of peace. It is not the absence of struggle, but the alignment with truth. It is the moment when you stop trying to change the rhythm and start dancing with it. In that peace, gratitude blooms naturally, not as a word, but as a vibration. You find yourself whispering thank you, not to anyone or anything in particular, but to existence itself. Thank you for the water that remembers. Thank you for the salt that purifies. Thank you for the oil that nourishes. Thank you for the light that awakens. Thank you for the silence that reveals. Each thank you ripples outward, carried by the breath joining the great song of creation. You understand now that gratitude is the highest form of prayer. It requires no belief, no structure, no ritual, only presence. It is the language the universe understands without translation. When you feel gratitude deeply, you emit the same frequency as creation itself. It is the sound the stars make as they spin, the hum the oceans sing as they breathe. Gratitude is the recognition of unity, the realization that giver and receiver are one. You remember the lesson of the four sacred elements: water, salt, oil, and light. But now you see that they were never separate substances. They were mirrors of your own being. Water, the memory of your soul. Salt, the strength of your spirit. Oil, the softness of your heart. Light, the clarity of your mind. Together they form the human essence. Together they form you. The elements were not teaching you to heal. They were teaching you to remember what you are made of. And now you see that you were never just observing a process of healing. You were the process. Every moment of curiosity, revelation, transformation and awakening was your own alchemy unfolding. You have been the scientist and the mystic, the seeker and the sought, the healer and the healed. The journey was not about finding answers. It was about becoming silence, the still point where all answers already exist. You close your eyes and the body begins to dissolve into awareness. There is no boundary between skin and air. The breath flows in and out without edges. You cannot tell where you end and the world begins. And then it happens, the simplest, most profound realization of all. You were never separate from anything. The lemon on the table, the water in the glass, the salt in the bowl. They are all made of the same divine fabric. They are all expressions of the same consciousness that dreams through you. You are the kitchen, the world, the universe, remembering itself. The ancients called this the return to the source. The mystics called it union. The scientists might one day call it coherence. But names are irrelevant. What matters is the knowing, the quiet certainty that there is no higher or lower, no sacred or profane, no healer or patient. Only one vast, living intelligence expressing itself through infinite forms. You smile. The mind tries to understand, but the heart already knows. It feels like warmth spreading through the chest, like sunlight rippling beneath the skin. You open your eyes, and the world looks softer. The edges of things blur, as if kindness itself were breathing through them. The noise of the world still exists, but it no longer disturbs you. You can hear it, but you also hear the silence beneath it, the eternal hum of creation, patient, eternal, unbroken. And in that moment, you understand why the sages spoke of kitchens, temples, and gardens with the same reverence. The divine does not prefer marble over clay. It does not reside in ritual, but in awareness. It hides in the way you slice bread, in the way you boil water, in the way you breathe before speaking. Every act done with presence becomes sacred. Every space touched by awareness becomes holy ground. The ordinary world becomes a prayer unfolding in real time. You pour one last glass of water. The light from the window glides across its surface, turning it into liquid gold. You lift it slowly, close your eyes, and speak nothing. The silence itself becomes the blessing. You drink, and it feels as if the universe is drinking through you. Every cell rejoices. Every molecule sings. You realize that this simple act contains all the wisdom ever written. That the divine never asked for worship, only attention. That heaven is not a destination, but a perception. That healing was never something to achieve, but something to remember. When you set the glass down, you feel peace radiating outward, gentle, endless, alive. You know that you will never look at life the same way again. The kitchen will always be more than a room. Water will always be more than water. And you will always be more than a body. You are awareness, eternal and luminous, flowing through form. You are creation remembering itself, healing itself, loving itself. You bow your head not out of duty but out of wonder. The words come softly, almost like a sigh. Thank you for hiding the cure in plain sight, for placing it where we least thought to look, in the warmth of a meal, in the calm of breath, in the silence between heartbeats. Thank you for reminding us that what is sacred was never lost. It was simply waiting for us to slow down, to notice, to remember. And as that realization settles into the quiet of your soul, you feel a deep peace, the kind that doesn't end when you open your eyes. It is the peace of knowing that you are not walking through the world. The world is walking through you. You are not seeking the divine. The divine is seeking to know itself through your hands, through your gratitude, through your life. The journey has ended, yet it has only begun. For awakening is not a moment, it is a way of seeing. Every sunrise, every sip, every silence will remind you. The natural cure they hid from you was never hidden. It was always here, inside your awareness, inside your breath, inside your kitchen, inside you.